How is everyone this morning?
Tired.
Yes.
You lost an hour as well.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I wouldn't mind it so much if I was actually hungover, but I'm just sleep deprived.
Yeah. Know about it. Trust me. Good. But here we are. We'll make the best of it, won't we?
Yeah.
Won't we, Simon?
Yeah, we're going to make the best.
It's going to be raucous. Yeah. I hope it's all working because this is going to be gold.
I've read the press notes and everything. Can you talk a little bit about improvisation in this film?
Yeah. Well, I'm a sort of great believer in things feeling natural and real and authentic, and I think a lot of that often comes with a bit of improvisation. And it's interesting because I wrote it as well as directed it. Bizarrely, sort of, you'd imagine that I'd be more precious about the words than perhaps somebody who hadn't wrote it. But because I sort of realised the process and sort of, well, okay, some of these jokes might be a bit shit. I was very encouraging of the actors to sort of improvise, and the philosophy is a relatively tried and tested one, where it would be, well, let's have a go, let's get the scripted words, and then see what happens. And in the casting, one of my sort of primary objectives was to find people who were funny and sharp and bright and witty. I sat down with all the actors as opposed to kind of reading most of them, and just kind of sat in a room and chatted with them and laughed with them. And I thought, if they do have all those attributes, if they are bright and funny and can sort of think on their feet, which some actors can, some actors can't, then I sort of wanted them in the movie. So yeah, I was very encouraging of a bit of improvisation, I think. Just in order, because then I essentially get the credit. So,
yeah. So you're okay with your actors maybe criticizing your script a little bit?
Yeah.
Like, hey, I think this might work better this way.
Yeah. I mean, I hate deference in any shape or form, and Simon's certainly very good in not being deferential.
It's funny because so often you ask questions about improvisation and how it works in films, and it's such a loose term because it's kind of I always think it's like a controlled improvisation. I mean, Dan wrote it, but there's a lot of, and people get this idea that writer directors is like, these are my words, this is the Bible, this is the Holy Grail, don't mess with it. But Dan had this sort of next step on confidence, which is, I'm cutting this thing, which means, in essence, I'll take whatever is going to come out, but before it gets passed on to anyone to watch, it's got to go. I'm still editing, so I'm still the writer in essence. So there was a lack of sort of any kind of fear in. I thought with Dan there was no fear. Because I didn't improvise at all. I mean, barely improvised. I was not. Your character wasn't. Well, it depends on what I'm doing. My character didn't really lend itself on that in this particular piece. Mm-hmm. It just, obviously Rafe's character totally was that character, and Rafe and Dan had this thing where they would just go, and sometimes we'd all be sort of sitting there going, where the fuck is Rafe going? Where is he going with this? And Dan never got actually, you just let him go, which is, it's a kind of an interesting game, because really, when you do improv, and I improv a lot on my show, but that's sort of the role. It wasn't suited to this. I had to sort of hit certain beats and off what other people were doing. But it's a very interesting game to see the trust between a director and an actor, and it was interesting for me watching Rafe and Dan, because Dan didn't get panicked. He also didn't go over, which is this comedy stuff is like, when it's really like a full-blown comedy, it's quite serious business. Oh, that's funny, that's not funny, that's funny. It's like, oh, geez. It's okay if you're doing a drama and you happen to throw a couple of gags in there, because no one's expecting it, right, to be funny. But when you say this is a comedy, right, it's like saying to a woman before you have sex, this is going to be some great love now. you set yourself up for
Yeah.
sort of a situation, and
I've never done that.
I'm always, this is going to be shit, but I'll do my best.
We're all
It's
trying.
sort of what I did in the movie, right? But yeah, so it's interesting with that, like with the rules, and also like from watching Dan, like not undermining Rafe's confidence when he is going off somewhere where it doesn't necessarily work. He's not going, that didn't really work. He's just because that can really crush you, particularly when you are, Rafe had a big responsibility in this film, and he was, had to pull off a lot. A guy that's sort of a twat, that's likable and entertaining, but not really shouldn't really. Okay, he shouldn't be with this girl. So it's sort of a hard thing to do, a hard ask for a character.
Yeah.
I think you did quite well. I thought you handled that really well.
Thank you. You're very kind to say so, Simon Baker.
Like you said,
I know it's grudging.
I would say, that's the same.
When you're, I guess, on the other end and you're watching, I guess, Rafe do some improv, and can you feel it's not going anywhere like you were saying? And
No, sometimes it was just, because a lot of the time I was sort of the straight guy kind of waiting. It was just a little bit like, like anything, there's the direct route and then there's the scenic route. And sometimes it would get very scenic, and then we'd go, finally, we're back on the main road. And in my head, I was always often thinking, that one works. We'll leave it. It can be like a house of cards, and when you obviously Dan knows more about this than I do on this particular film, which is once you get into the edit, it can be like a house of cards where, you really like this gag, but in order for that gag to work, you've got to have this bit and this bit and this bit. Oh shit, that bit didn't work, so...
Yeah. So, and obviously, I've spent the last 10 years with Sasha, where it's sort of, a lot of improvisation, and so I've become quite, hopefully quite adept at, seeing what works and what doesn't, and, often he can go off for, an hour and a half, and you get, a minute out of it, and you're constantly kind of thinking what minute is good, so, I'm sort of, this, by contrast, was, much more controlled.
Simon, what was it that drew you to the script when you first read it?
Well, I've read a lot of romantic comedies, and I all like all of those 26 dresses or 27 dresses.
26. You read the first one, the prequel.
They changed one number.
That was your note on the script, wasn't it? I think we need another dress.
27 is more romantic. No, but I've read a lot of those, and ever since I did that movie, The Devil Wears Prada, I got sent a lot of this, and I was always the kind of, they always wanted me to play the guy that was an arsehole, basically. I don't know why I get that right. Anyway, they all tick these certain boxes of sort of cliches of the genre, right? And what I liked about this movie was it actually ticked all those cliches of the genre, but it flipped them all upside down. So it was like, okay, we're going to tick those boxes. So they're all there, and we're hitting the nail on the head with all of those beats that we expect, but we've got a total reverse story. And I thought that was just a fresh and interesting way to go about it. Little did I know that some people get a little bit like, well, what does that say about marriage?
I know. It's odd that, isn't
And
it?
it really is a movie about marriage. Is it really kind of, we're trying to make a piece of entertainment that takes the piss out of how far, sort of how serious we are about, the notion of committing to a marriage and sticking with it, or like, I don't know how many people, I'm from a broken home. My wife's from a broken home. So many people understand divorce. If they haven't been through it, they certainly know someone that has been through it. And everyone knows the dreaded relationship where you lose a friend, because it's like, oh no, please, what is he singing about? That's it. I can't be friends with you anymore because I can't stand your wife. It's like, can you come? Oh, please don't bring the missus. Of course she's invited. The politics of that we don't talk about is funny and interesting and awkward, and I thought that was great. And I thought, obviously, if you could pull off the first anniversary scene, that's the most romantic moment in the whole script. I thought was when these two were being honest with each other and saying, "You're not really the person that makes my heart sing." And I thought that was the challenge with the whole movie, and I was interested in that. Plus, I hadn't done anything like this, so it's always a challenge. It's always sort of interesting.
So, kind of a random question, but you as a director, since this is such so opposite of a romantic comedy, are there any famous couples or famous storylines in movies that you would love to kind of take this route with them with?
It's interesting. I mean, sort of all of them really. I think if you take any romantic comedy, to me, it's sort of incredibly fascinating to see what happens at the moment the credit rolls. You know, because if you talk about what happens in Rome or 27 Dresses, or most romantic comedies are about people who absolutely shouldn't be together. That's the kind of point of a romantic comedy. It's like, look at these opposites they've attracted, and isn't it going to be fantastic? And then the cynic in me sitting there, well, it's not going to be fantastic. They're unbelievably ill-suited to each other, and they're going to get back from their honeymoon. And the thing that annoys you about the Irish sheep farmer, if you're the San Diego PR girl, is going to absolutely drive you crazy within a week of you moving in with each other, and it's going to end in a horrific and acrimonious divorce. So you sort of think, with all those things, it's kind of the realist, to me, looks behind the the Hollywood curtain, if you like. So I think you could take any romantic comedy, and almost all of them would end in divorce.
I thought it was kind of interesting because you made Anna Faris's character and Simon's character not conniving or evil, trying to break up a marriage. They were just kind of on the outskirts. His character didn't even really know. So I thought that was an interesting take. I mean, did you obviously did it on purpose?
Yeah.
I mean, because it follows more along the romantic comedy that there's always this person, trying to do something backhanded.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, exactly. That tends to be what happens in romantic comedies. Like the nasty guy comes in, sweeps the girl off her feet, and you think, well, please don't end up with him because he's not very nice. And the challenge in this, because it's which is always the challenge for the very first point of coming up with the idea, was you're rooting for a couple to split up, and that's really hard to do and not make it toxic and feel bad at the end when they do split up. So in order to do that and facilitate that, you need two other protagonists who you sort of want them to end up with. And so if they are kind of nasty or horrible, then you're like, oh, don't end up with that person. And actually you want them to end up with that person because, Guy, Simon's character, is lovely, he's brilliant. And again, that was the interesting thing in Simon taking the part, because when you see him on screen, you have an expectation, because of the romantic comedy tropes. So you go, oh, he's going to be a nasty guy, he's going to come in, and what's brilliant, and what Simon does brilliantly, is kind of flip that expectation. And Guy's actually a bit of a doofus. You know what I mean? Yeah. He's kind of, he's not, and so you're happy that they end up with each other. And Simon does that brilliantly. So it was the reason that they're not nasty is because ultimately you want our characters to end up with them, Josh and Nat to end up with them. Yeah.
With casting, did you know Simon prior to this, or how did?
No, not at all. I mean, obviously I knew Simon's work, and loved it and thought he was brilliant, and just would be only so lucky in order to have him. So honestly, the casting process, it was like playing fantasy football for me in a weird way. Like I came in and go, oh God, I love Simon in that. He'd be the perfect guy. I love Rose in Bridesmaids, wouldn't she be fantastic? I love, I'd work with Anna on The Dictator, and So it was amazing to have the opportunity to go out to these people, and was incredibly thrilling when they said yes. I mean, I think universally, even if people don't like the film necessarily or have problems with the film, universally everybody said, my God, you got an amazing cast.
Yeah.
Almost in a way to kind of say, okay, got an amazing cast, how'd you fuck that up? But
so English.
I got warned beforehand.
I'm not even English, but it's still in there through
generations back. Yeah.
Just get rid of that. That's freedom. Never going to shed that
there are people before you come to America just go like, you know, we know you're self-deprecating, but like, don't be self-deprecating. Like, Americans don't understand it. They'll just think that you think the film's shit and it's so funny.
Oh, you're so.
My Hugh Grant bumbling.
Just don't start the blinking.
So is this almost the romantic comedy for people that don't like romantic comedies?
I think it sort of is. I mean, you know, I've been burnt, as it were, you know, by either on an aeroplane or sitting down on a, you know, Tuesday night and going into Netflix and thinking, oh, this would be fun to see, this kooky story of this mismatched couple. And, you know, most romantic comedies are neither particularly romantic nor particularly comedic, I think.
Right,
you know, and it's weird, you know, I think, as I said last night, it's a slightly pejorative term, romantic comedy, I think. You know, you go in with an expectation and you know, I understand why people want to market this as a romantic comedy, because people go to see romantic comedies and it's a more difficult sell, but really to me it's a comedy about relationships as opposed to a romantic comedy, really, I think.
So what were the biggest challenges for both of you in flipping this genre on its head?
There wasn't really a challenge for me in that regard. You know, I mean, it was all kind of laid out there for me. I mean, it was just the process of doing it, which always has its sort of little challenges here and there, but no real major challenges. You know, like Dan's saying, the idea of what a romantic comedy is, it's a term that I don't really like because it does set you up. You know, you look at a film like Silver Linings Playbook, it's really a drama. It's a family sort of drama that has romance in it and comedic moments. But they're focused on it being a story about a family and a guy kind of getting back into the family. When you do a film that is a romantic comedy, it's like, well, hit me, where's the romance, where's the comedy? You know, and if you don't have equal parts, then you're in trouble. But no challenge. I really always, I don't get to do a lot of films because of the amount of work that I do on a TV show. So when I do something, particularly if it's in like a mainstream sort of genre like we're looking at here, I want it to be something that's sort of fresh and interesting, and I'd rather take the chance on something like I Give It a Year and take that risk than go into the standard tried and true, you know, obvious choices that come along. So there wasn't really any challenges in it for me. I mean, just logistically, it was just, you know, walking off one set and walking onto another is the only kind of challenge. But you know,
I think for me, probably it was like, you know, just to actually try and make it romantic in some sense, because my natural instincts, like also my previous work, and I definitely much more towards the comedy side of things, and I have quite sort of in life a sort of relatively cynical view of things, and kind of you know, as a reaction to those romantic comedies, I was like, kind of, well, I don't want any soppiness, I don't, you know, because you feel like it's selling out. So the challenge was really to make the romance feel real and earned and authentic within a comedy framework. You know, I was always very confident about the comedy part of it, and just needed to kind of steel myself to make the romance not really feel cheesy, hopefully. That was my challenge.
And no doves were harmed during the...
Oh no, loads of doves. Loads of doves. You see by the side of the thing, there's just a pile of dead. No, I think Rose was harmed more than she, I mean, honestly, that was, I think, her worst
I don't
day
believe
ever.
they're actually doves either.
Really?
I think there was someone in the back of the truck that we didn't see just spray painting pigeons. 2 more.
It's true, yeah.
Like
You
mutant
see,
doves or something.
Yeah. No, that was a tricky day. Rose was like genuinely petrified, like properly like frozen in fear of those doves.
Well, I made it all much more funny
Oh,
on
cool.
screen,
Thank you.
because you know, like you could tell, like that's not acting. She's
On the
very-
DVD, there's going to be an amazing kind of sort of blooper reel of like just all her like thrown together. It's about 8 minutes long. So, that was a good day. Enjoyed that.
We rehearsed that too, didn't we? We rehearsed with doves.
Oh yeah.
And I remember at that church where we were doing rehearsals, and I remember at the end of that day, looking over at you sort of across the room, and you were so sort of restrained that you were like, it was almost like an eye roll and a sigh at the same time without doing anything, going, how are we going to do this? And this was a rehearsal.
May the 17th or whatever. Yeah, exactly. It's like, that was the thing.
And then when the day came and we took the drive out to this pretty location out, near Pinewood, wasn't it? That was a beautiful location. Got there and Dan was like, as soon as the doves came out, Rose was
It's an amazing thing to have an animal scene and not be worried about the animals at all. Like, the animals, we knew they were going to behave. It was actually the star that was the worry.
Honestly, it's like, whoa.
Yeah. And so, like, you didn't love them, but you were just...
No, I didn't love them, but you were,
Yeah.
You're trying to keep the woman from running away completely.
Yeah, it's got to be manly. It's true.
Calm down.
Yeah, it's true.
Great job by the violinist in that scene too.
Yeah, no, he's fantastic. He's a brilliant, he's a sketch comedy performer in Britain. He's got his own TV show, and he's really funny. I think he's going to be a big hit at some point in his life.
How did you get Stephen Merchant on board to this? You don't see him in many films.
No, you really don't. And I know Steve. I knew Stephen a bit from Around and About, and he was the only part that I wrote with somebody specifically in mind. I wrote it I want Stephen Merchant to do it. I want it in his voice. I know how he'd do it. He'd be brilliant at doing it. And because he doesn't do much, was like, probably won't do it, but we'll just get someone along to do a sort of Stephen Merchant impression. And he read it and was just like, very simply, yeah, funny, I'll do it. Which was an incredible thing. We made it work in his schedule, and obviously he's a scene stealer in every scene it's in, and it was a real thrill to me in terms of, he's sort of comedy royalty in England, and to have one of your peers think that what you've written is kind of up to his standard, as it were, was incredibly thrilling for me. So that was really nice.
You guys mentioned rehearsals. You had rehearsals before you started filming?
Yeah, we did sort of a couple.
They generally look better than having them on.
So you rehearsed after the film, right?
Occasionally I rehearse again. Just to kind of exercise.
I mean, before particular scenes, but before any film was shot, you guys had like rehearsals and.
Yeah.
Oh wow.
Yeah, we did a couple of weeks. As part of the process, I just thought it would be nice to stand stuff up and see what happened, and encourage improvisation in the rehearsals and play around with things and just really work out.
It's pretty luxurious.
Yeah.
It doesn't happen very often. But it's kind of, I think it's really good. I mean, no matter how, it's when you really look at it, it's very vague, but what it does is it gets all a little bit of the, you'll have a little chat, any kind of things come out, ideas get sort of popped up. Sometimes when you get to shooting it, all of that's forgotten, or it's just something, just a process that's sort of worked through. I thought that was fun and luxurious.
Yeah, it was great, and it really helps on the day. You turn up at your place, and like you say, some days you just throw everything out because, hold on, I wasn't expecting that to be there and this to be there, and But often it just saves you that first hour and a half in the morning of your shoot, where you can actually be getting stuff on camera as opposed to kind of working things out. So no, it was great. I loved it. Great. Beautiful. There we go. We've done it. We've answered every question. That's lunch. Back to bed. Fantastic. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thanks, guys.
We were wondering if we could get a couple of pictures.